Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Seed to Harvest with your host, Paige Finn Doherty. I'm the founding partner behind Genius Ventures, and today I am honored to be joined by Erin Harkless Moore, who's the investments director for Pivotal Ventures. Erin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paige. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today on the podcast.
Yay, I'm so excited. Well, I would love to get started with perhaps you can add some context as to the background and mission for Pivotal Ventures as a whole, and then I would love to dive a bit more into your background.
Sure. So Pivotal Ventures is an investment company that was founded by Melinda French Gates to advance social progress and remove barriers that hold people in our country back. So we're unique in some ways in that we're not traditional philanthropy. In addition to using philanthropic capital, we also are driving impact through our investment portfolio and our investment strategy. And one thing I like to say is that while some of our philanthropic work corrects for market failures, our investments, particularly those at the early stages and in venture capital, are unleashing new solutions and new innovation in our country. And for us, we're really driving towards a strategic outcome of advancing women's power and influence. So to do that, it's essential that a diverse group of people are controlling, accessing, and benefiting from investment capital. And we don't need to, we can pick our statistic. You are familiar, and probably many of your listeners are,
Yeah,
with
not
those
many of them are
numbers.
great.
Not many of them are great. 15% of check writers, women, 2% of funding goes to female founder. Pick your stat, right? They're not great. And the cornerstone of our strategy is to try to change that by having more women controlling the purse strings and running and leading investment firms and funds. And that will hopefully lead to a more diverse set of founders also getting access to capital.
I love that. One of the interviews that I read while preparing for this conversation mentioned that earlier in your career, you were working on Wall Street and you're also working on outside initiatives in diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
And I really liked what you said around, now your role is much more intertwined with both of those large passions of yours. I'm curious, can you share some of your other passions that are also being manifested in the role that you have today?
Sure. No, I feel like such a privilege to sit in the seat that I sit in and do this work and drive real impact. So that's incredibly important to me. But I think a couple other passions of mine that sort of show up in my job. I love to read. I'm a big reader,
Mhm.
fiction mostly, some nonfiction as
Oh,
well.
I
And
love that.
oh, good. Well, we can talk more about books later. But one of my favorite, things I think to do, I always consider myself to be an inquisitive person. And part of reading is like discovery, learning about something new and asking questions. And that shows up in every day in my job. I mean, a core aspect of this work is doing diligence on fund managers, doing diligence on founders, new products, new ideas. And so I think that curiosity that comes through, when I'm downloading a new book or in the library. I'm old school. I still go to the DC Public Library.
I love the library. It's so
And
nice.
yeah, it's so cozy. But just having a space to learn and inquire. I think that's something that, kind of comes through from my love of reading, my love of travel. I love
Mhm.
just experiencing different places, different cultures, different people, different cuisines. Friends always joke, I have less time for it now with small children, but I love going out to new restaurants and trying new
Yeah.
restaurants. And so just that, I think, constant quest to explore and learn really drives
Mhm.
a lot of, why I think I'm in a job that suits me, because I get to do that every day, interviewing and talking to fund managers, learning about their strategies and trying to build a portfolio that meets our, both our return objectives and also our impact and mission objectives here at Pivotal Ventures.
Yeah. And I want to touch on something that you said is especially when you're investing in non-traditional managers or managers who are earlier in their career, a lot of the diligence that you're doing is more emotional or personal than quantitative. Of course, there's like quantitative aspects to it, but I feel like reading, exploring, traveling really contribute to you having a more holistic view of the managers that you work with. So I think that that is really cool. I'd love to hear more about a fiction book that impacted you or particularly resonated with you recently.
Oh, that's a great question. I just finished a book called Sea of Tranquility by Emily St.
Ooh.
John Mandel. She's the author of Station 11 and The Glass House. And so has written these books. Station 11 was kind of basically about a pandemic that took over the
Mhm.
world. Sea of Tranquility, in some ways, actually references some characters from her prior book, but
Mhm.
it's really kind of, I'd almost say, amusing on like how there's elements of time travel. It's very speculative and even kind of
Yeah.
science sci-fi in some of what it's doing. But it really brought up for me just questions of like, how we communicate, what we see versus what we perceive, and what's true. What's true. I mean, I think that was a question that sort of permeated throughout. So I finished that book about a week ago, and it's still looming in my mind.
That's super interesting. Yeah, the difference between what you like, I guess, like, content and context I've been thinking about a lot. Okay, I have a one more personal question, then we'll hop into some, like,
Sure.
nitty-gritty manager stuff. But when you go visit a new city, how do you like to explore it?
Oh wow, that's a great question. I like to, again, kind of coming back to food per usual.
I
That's
love it.
one
I
of my
love it.
love languages, particularly sweets. And I think, whatever every culture kind of has its thing, or every city, every place. It's like, we
Yeah.
do breakfast tacos. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. You know,
Mhm.
Tex-Mex tacos, that's our thing. Yeah, I think I try to figure out and find like what that is in the place, and like ask locals, ask the guy at the hotel, ask, someone
Ooh,
who's just like lives there. And,
yeah.
not don't send me to the place that's like the touristy spot. Like I want to try
Yeah.
and find, what's the real flavor of the city. And I have a sweet tooth, as I was just alluding to. So that often will drive me, towards like the ice cream parlor, the gelateria,
Mhm.
the donut place. But,
Mm.
every culture kind of has those things. And I feel like the best way is to, again, ask questions, right? And ask
Yeah.
questions from lots of different sources to try and learn and get a flavor of a community.
I love that. I feel like what you said about, like, getting the flavor of the community is really what you focus on, so I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, so I wanna focus a bit on, like, fund manager best practices. So as
Yep.
you've been investing at Pivotal Ventures, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned either, like, investing in fund managers, well, I guess, like, as an investments director, you have a handful of responsibilities, like investing, and then you also have, like, managing the portfolio as well. So feel free to dive into either of those two sectors as well.
Sure, sure. I think in terms of lessons, I think a willingness to admit maybe when, take in new information,
Mhm.
and maybe willing to sort of, go back and interrogate assumptions that you've had, for an allocator. I think that's incredibly important. And, one thing that we look for, I'm trying to suss out from prospective fund managers that we're meeting is, do they have a growth mindset and how they approach and how
Mm.
they think about, the work that they're doing, the business and the fund, the platform that they're hopefully trying to
Yeah.
build and scale. And so one big part of that, I think a lesson that I've learned is just to be willing to kind of revisit and come back to things and let people show you how they're learning and growing or not as an investor over time. But a couple of things that I'd say fund managers to do, like, that are very simple, like we have a meeting and I say, well, let's stay in touch, add me to your distribution list, follow up. I want to stay in touch this way. Like actually follow, it seems very simple, actually following through on that.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many folks do not, do that, right? Like as I've gotten to know you, Paige, like you've kept us we stayed in touch on what you're
Yeah.
doing with the podcast and your investments and other things, right? Like very simple, and a lot
Wait,
of
that's
a
so
lot of
funny because I
fund
was
managers
thinking
don't do it.
and, like, in my head, I was like, "Dang, have I been doing that?" So I'm happy to hear
Yeah.
that I have been doing
Yeah.
that because I was like,
Yeah. No, you
I
have, you have.
uh,
It's
okay.
sort of just, it's very simple, doing what you say you're gonna do, right? And, if you're gonna assume that if you have a reference list or you- founder, we're gonna check on that. And so just being very thoughtful and clear in articulating your strategy and your value add and your sourcing capabilities, all those things are important. But, knowing that what you put out there, we're gonna as an investor on the other side of the table, as an LP, are really gonna kick the tires thoroughly. So don't be surprised, when questions come up that are digging deeper into some of those core aspects of,
Yeah.
of what you're building.
Did you ever think about going into journalism? I'm always curious. I love asking investors this because I feel like it's like you're on some FBI investigation stuff when you're doing due diligence. So I'm
Yes.
curious. You ever explored that?
It's It's so funny you asked that. I actually did. I wrote
Let's
for my
go.
college newspaper
Oh,
all
that's
4
awesome.
years and did some programs and internship at the local San Antonio newspaper, also in, kind of high school and in college. And at the end of the day, it wasn't the right path for me. But like we were saying earlier, I do think there are elements of that kind of journalism mindset, right? And the
Yeah.
communications, telling a story too, right? Like making the case to our investment committee, to our principal, et cetera, of why fund A is the fund that we want to invest in, or fund B is the fund that we want to back. There are journalistic elements, storytelling elements to that for sure.
Mm. And speaking of stories, I would love to hear the story of like the first time that you met Melinda French Gates. I would love to hear that story.
Oh wow. Well, it's interesting. When did I first meet Melinda? She had stopped by our office here
Mhm.
in Washington, D.C. This is the first time I met her face to face. And it was so fun because we were all kind of awaiting her arrival
Yeah.
that day. And as soon as the elevator opened, she said, "Oh, hi, I'm Melinda." And we were all like, "Hi." And so, we just had a very nice chat. And, she is a phenomenal leader, philanthropist, investor. And it's just, again, she sets the tone, having someone like her in the seat that she's in, using her voice and her capital of all forms to drive real change and greater equity and more power for women is tremendous. She could be doing a lot of things, and the fact that she's doing this is so powerful.
Yeah, she is definitely someone that I look up to as well. I'm curious, and this can be in your investing or reading, or who are some of the role models that you really look up to and inspire you?
And I think it's so important when you can look at and see people that look like you doing the
Hmm.
work that you do or aspire to do. And there are a couple of women, particularly Black women on Wall Street and some who I've gotten to meet personally and get to know a little bit, that I've always admired, including Melody Hobson, running Ariel Investments, Carla Harris, who was a senior director at Morgan Stanley, Kim Wu, who's the chief investment officer at Columbia's endowment.
Hmm.
I mean, I think all three of them show up in such important ways and have blazed trails in the work that they do. But if, from my perception and what I know of them and time spent with some of them, they live authentically as well. Carla has written books. She sings, like
Yeah.
she's herself, right? In all the ways, and also leading some of the biggest client relationships at Morgan Stanley and giving back with her time and her treasure and her capital to the communities that she cares about. So it's awesome to me. And I hope that I'm on a path to continue to do more of that and be a role model to others that are coming into this space, like some of those women have been for me.
Yeah, I love that. I'm sure that you already are. I feel like it's interesting how like that can be so important is just to show up and be yourself in spaces where people haven't seen someone that looks like them. I think it's just like y- y- sometimes you can like underestimate the importance of just showing up, and I feel like it's really
Yeah.
important, even on the days when you're not feeling great. You're like, all right,
Yeah,
it's important to show up because someone 10, 20 years down the line might see that and get inspired and go and do something great because they saw that representation. So I so
totally.
appreciate you sharing that. um and I think in terms of like your investing strategy, are there folks that you kind of emulate a similar either like portfolio strategy, the people that you select to work with? Is there anyone that you look up to from a more, I would say, like tactical perspective specifically?
Sure. I mean, there are quite a few like-minded travelers, I like to call them, that I think are investing and deploying capital to emerging managers, to diverse managers. Those don't have to necessarily always be the same, but I think that are being really thoughtful about how they approach this work and wanting to create space in their portfolios and build new portfolios that bring those managers to the forefront. And yeah, I could probably list like a dozen folks and firms. I mean, there's so many great, some of the fund of funds out there that are investing with a lens around emerging managers like Recast Capital
Hmm.
and Include Ventures and Fairview Capital. I mean, these are all, we share notes with and have some overlapping managers in our portfolios. I think there are a handful of other family offices and, prominent individuals that are investing with this lens that we collaborate with a fair amount. And then some of the big endowments and foundations that have, kind of impact, DEI focused
Hmm.
mandates as well, thinking like the Kellogg Foundation and the Ford Foundation that have really been pushing and allocating more capital to diverse managers or all folks that I would count again in a network of investors that we share deals with, trade notes with, often show up on the same cap tables and as LPs in the same fund.
I love that. I feel like it's really exciting. I don't think that people often see the behind the scenes as well of allocation, but I deeply believe like the more dollars that get allocated to diverse check writers, like the more that flows down to backing diverse founders and changing those not great
Totally.
statistics. So I so appreciate
Totally.
the work that you all are doing. I'm curious, can you share a story of how either you met or have worked with one of the fund managers in your portfolio that has surprised you in some way?
Oh, let's see. Many surprises. How to pick how to pick just one. It's like that, I mean, that kind of tired line of, I feel like if you have children, you're like, you don't have I love all my children. I love
Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
of our
That's why I
partners,
wanted
all of
to
our
include the
funds, all of our
surprise thing.
founders.
It's not
Yeah,
necessarily like pick
yeah.
your favorite person. It's like, who
Yeah.
surprised you
Who
recently?
has surprised me recently? I mean, I think, one that's maybe just top of mind because she just announced her close of her fund
So
is,
much.
Monique Woodard at Cape Ventures.
Yeah, she was
We
just on.
have, yeah. Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So your listeners have heard from her. Maybe I should pick another example there, but
No,
I
no,
will
no.
just speak to
Please tell a
Monique
story
briefly.
about her.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think she's just been her focus on her strategy for the moment that, we met her now several years ago at Pivotal has just been razor sharp and clear on what she is executing towards with her different layers of the cake, aging, rise of new majority and the power of women and just continuing to refine that and back great founders building in that space. I think she also brought a great group of institutional LPs to the table. But one thing I really respect about where she landed with this fund was that, she said, I want to just get to work. I want to just get to investing. And her fund size, I think she's going to punch above her weight. She
Yeah.
closed on 17 million, but I'm just really looking forward to seeing where she takes that portfolio initially and, putting points on the board. So I think, a surprise was just that, she re- recognized the market, recognized she had great partners around the table and was willing to just go with that and keep building and keep scaling. And again, building a world-class investment strategy at Cake Ventures. So I'm really excited for what she's up to.
Yeah. Yeah. She is an incredible inspiration. I so enjoy our conversations
Yeah.
as well. I think some of the demographic shifts that she's investing in are so I just like you mentioned, like I love the layers of the cake and how she's blending those different demographic shifts. I'm curious from your
Yeah.
perspective as an LP, what are some of the demographic shifts that you are seeing or you're investing in at Pivotal?
Sure. We are many, but I think
Hmm.
one area that's been very much a focus for us at Pivotal is around the care economy. We've done
Mm.
a lot of work there, both with programmatic strategies and philanthropic capital to seed innovation, support, advancing policies to support caregivers that are, all of us are caregivers at some point in our lives, but typically, women bear the brunt of that.
Hmm.
And so it's a space we've been doing a lot of work, but I see tremendous opportunity for innovation at the early stages. And, we're leaning in both with our fund investments. We anchored a fund called Magnify Ventures that announced their close last year. They have a thesis around technology for modern families and
Mm.
really centering, again, the care economy and their work. And we are, doing some direct investing and co-investing ourselves at Pivotal, around that theme, really focusing on a broad spectrum of areas, childcare, kind of household, future of
Hmm.
work, mental health, women's health, and aging and longevity. So, we Pivotal supported some research that sized the care economy as a $648 billion market.
Wow.
That's huge. I
Yeah.
think I'd hazard to say a lot of investors are not looking there. And so where other people are not looking, I think that creates great opportunities for founders, particularly those with lived experience to build.
Hmm.
And we're excited about seeing some of those opportunities and backing them.
Wow. Yeah, it's really incredible to hear your market sizing around the care economy as well. It's a space that we've looked at. We have one company in the portfolio, Italy, that connects caregivers to tax benefits. I think
Mhm.
annually it's around like 4 billion that goes unclaimed by in-home caregivers, which is the rising majority of folks are wanting to stay at home longer and have at-home care, but the majority of those caregivers are uncompensated and part of the family. And as you mentioned, often women. So I'm really excited about the work that they're doing there. And I think there's an incredible amount of opportunity in that space. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you see it, I'm excited for it to improve in the future. I think and speaking of the future, I would be curious to hear, like, what is your vision for your future? Not just like Pivotal, but what is your future for Erin?
Oh, wow. Well, I think, having time to read more books and
Ah,
eat good food, that's
I
definitely in my
love
future,
that.
personally. And but when I took this job, before I took this job at Pivotal, I was really pushing myself to think about what kind of impact I wanted to have with my career. And I think we spend a lot of time at work, right? So that
Yeah.
is a lot of your life and your work, right? And as you said earlier too, Paige, like I was trying to seek greater harmonization around the technical aspects of kind of where I had come up and been trained
Hmm.
with the type of world I want to see. And so, I aspire again to a world where those sad statistics that we alluded to earlier are no longer the case, where there are more and more women of color sitting on the Midas list. Whatever list someone
Hmm.
comes up with, I want more women on there. I want us running the show and seeing great founders, again, building wealth and scaling their businesses. That's success for me. So in the next 15 or 20 years, even if hopefully I'm at Pivotal Ventures for a long time, but if I'm not, these seeds that we planted today and some of the fund managers that we have been backing in the companies in their portfolios or those that we are supporting directly will be some of the game-changing businesses and platforms, again, creating and seeding innovation in our country for the years to come. So that's the future I hope for. And I have a daughter that, again, if she's, wants to build a company, there's a bunch of amazing women that are willing to have the capital and the platforms to support her. So that's what I'd love to see. That's the future I'm aiming for.
I love that. If you were to go back and tell yourself anything when you are at the age that your daughter is now, what would you go back and
Yep.
tell yourself?
Oh, wow. Take risks. And it's kind of a thing that is easier said than done. I think particularly, one can find themselves, and I was this way too, in some instances, like on a path of, getting to the next school, the next job, the next internship, the next this or that, and being, comfortable doing something that others are not doing. I think if I had done maybe more of that, probably would have had a slightly more interesting life. And yeah, perhaps but being okay to take those risks, but do it in a smart way and have fun. I love that I can come to work and have fun with what I do. Um, that's maybe not always been the case. Again, I've been on this march, I think over time, that's been more and more, but that's what I love. You spend a lot of time around your colleagues doing this work. And so if you're not having fun, I think life's too short. So I would, tell my younger self, just, keep having fun, ask questions, take risks, and have fun.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time and your insights and your stories with us, Erin. I so appreciate it. If folks
Oh,
want
thanks,
to,
Paige. It's
of
been fun.
course, of course. If folks want to follow you or your story, where should they find you on the internet?
Oh, geez. Well, I'm an old millennial, so you can find me. You can find me on LinkedIn, Erin Harkless Moore on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter, still
Woo!
Erin_Harkless. Those are probably the two places to find me.
On the
I'm
interwebs.
Instagram, TikTok. I'm on the interwebs.
I
Yeah,
love it.
probably LinkedIn and Twitter are the two best platforms.
Perfect.
And follow Pivotal Ventures as
Yes.
well. We're on all the channels: Instagram, LinkedIn, all of it. So follow
Perfect.
Pivotal Ventures there as well. Twitter.
Yeah, we'll link those in the show notes. And again, Erin, thanks again so much for your
Awesome.
time. And for those of you listening in, please let us know if you have any questions in the comments, like and subscribe. And thank you so much for listening. Special thank you to producer Riley Jennings and podcast editor Tate Doherty for your help on this episode. If you're listening and you'd like to connect with me, follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn, Paige Finn with 3 N's. Thanks again for listening. I really appreciate it. You can look out for new episodes every Monday at 5 p.m. PST. And if you'd like to learn more about the strategies and tactics of seasoned institutional investors and rising venture stars, check out our YouTube channel. at Seed to Harvest. Also, my TikTok channel is Seed to Harvest, where I post a lot of behind the scenes. And if you like this episode, please rate and review this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, if that's on Apple or Spotify. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.